Hi, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Allie. We decided a while ago that we wanted to run a series on this channel where we discussed a book together that we had read over the month.
The book for June is going to be The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. If you have not read this series, leave now.
Leave.
It's going to be
It's so many spoilers.
It's going to be spoilery, and
you definitely don't want to be ruined for a book like this.
If you haven't read them, I strongly suggest that you do. It's a whirlwind, it's amazing,
They're some of our favorite books ever.
Amazing.
They're really good. So we'll get started with the discussion now. If you haven't read them, you should be gone right now. Bye. Go away. I wanted to start the discussion with some notes I had on characters. I wanted to bring up Henry Chang a little bit. We have strong feelings on Henry Chang. I like his character, but he seemed kind of unnecessary and like he was only used for the B. Yeah, we just needed the B. Henry, I mean, I like you, but yeah.
Like, I like his character, and the parts that did have him were interesting, and the toga party was
I love the
great.
toga party.
It was a great scene, but if he was introduced in the beginning of the series, or maybe even in book 2, like, it would have been a lot better, because then he would have had a little more integral part of the story. But I think that introducing him in the 3rd book, and he wasn't really a very big part in the 3rd book.
And we didn't even like him in the 3rd book.
And then having him be such an important part and like so prominent in the 4th book, I thought it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I think that Maggie was acting like he was a lot more important than he really was. Because like when he was there with the whole like discovery of Glendower and stuff, and Noah wasn't, it seemed kind of wrong. That he didn't do a whole lot.
It's like she was trying to make up for the fact that Noah was going to die by bringing another boy in.
That Blue had a really close relationship with. We found you out, Stiefvater.
Myth busted. Speaking of unnecessary, I don't think that Lomanier was...
I loved his character.
I loved his character. I thought it was very interesting, but I wish we could have concentrated more on the main storyline than bringing him in for what is apparent. It was really just to show what Piper was trying to do.
Yeah,
like showing the auction and stuff, but
yeah.
Other than that, he didn't really have a purpose.
He or they or it or whatever, they weren't strictly necessary, but the concept was really interesting, and I kind of really liked the whole idea of the auction. I think that should have been given more attention, but honestly, if it had, it would have been a much longer of a book.
And why did we have to concern ourselves with Piper's complicated family history?
I don't know why they needed to be the father or uncle's situation. Because it would have been just as interesting had they have been just another buyer. One of my favorite parts about the characters is that none of them were Mary Sue's. For any of you who don't know, a Mary Sue is a character that's essentially flawless. Usually a female character, but that can describe anybody. That doesn't have any real character flaws and are just kind of there to fill space. Like, all of our main characters were completely unlikable at times, and like you said, like Blue annoyed you a lot, and Gansey was just kind of really pretentious and a bit of an asshole at times, and none of them were perfect characters, but that made them a lot more realistic and made, I think, the reader fell in love with them even more. One thing that is really impressive with Maggie's writing is that all of the characters' points of view were very different, and what I was gonna say is that Gansey's point of view seemed very smooth and very indifferent.
One thing that we should talk about with Gansey's point of view is how did he know that he was going to die?
Yeah.
When was that introduced? It was just at the end of Blue Lily Lily Blue. That's the 3rd book. At the end of Blue Lily Lily Blue.
That's so hard to say.
That's a mouthful. It hadn't been mentioned that he knew that he was going to die. Like, Blue hadn't told him. He hadn't put the pieces together with the ley line and hearing her voice on the recording and everything. Like, he hadn't put it together. And then at the beginning of The Raven King, we get to know that he suddenly knows that he's going to die. And there was no moment of realization. Yeah. There was no, like, connecting the dots or anything. It was just suddenly he knew. And then he knew throughout the book. It
makes sense that he would have pieced it together because I feel like Gansey knows enough about this situation and knows enough about the whole ley line thing that he would have pieced it together. But I wish it had been mentioned maybe in, like, the Dream Thieves. Because
it just seems ridiculous that we went through 3 books that he would have known
and there was
that it was going to happen, and there was
At least from what I could deduce, there was no, like, hints or, like, subtleties of him hiding the fact that he knew. Like, there was never a moment in the other 3 books that he was, like, withholding information. So I don't really, it just kind of came out of nowhere a little bit.
Yeah.
Another note on characters is that I love the way that Noah was treated. I've seen reviews where people thought that Noah should have been given more screen time or more attention in the book. But I think that it made a lot of sense the way that his character developed. I don't know if even in the first book, he was never, like, a number 1 integral part of the thing. And I would have liked to explore a bit more what was happening with him throughout the book because he was, like, deteriorating. And I would like to know a bit more of what that means. But it makes sense that that is what happened. It's the use of the he used to be. Mm-hmm. I find in the first book it was very much like, Noah's just one of us, guys. It's all right. We can do everything we can with him as we can do with the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And really starting in Blue, it was like he was very much other than the rest of them, and I think that it just kind of like progressed well with the whole like this is Noah now and this is Noah then.
When his sister comes to the school to talk about the Raven Day and talks about how Noah used to be and how Noah like dreamt this event and stuff.
And how he's just not at all what he is now.
Yeah.
That scene, the Raven Day scene, killed me. Mm-hmm. Like, and then, like, Gansey's, like, full-on, like, panic attack, mental breakdown.
Adam having to leave because his hand was going to attack him and his eye was going against him.
When everything fell apart, man.
That's when you really got, like, into it, I felt like. Up until then, it was just kind of like you were floating along.
Like, you knew that something was going to happen.
But then you kind of
That's
dove
when got real.
Yeah. And the demon was introduced and everything. Like, you knew that something was attacking Cabe's water.
Yeah. I want...
Brilliant writing on Maggie's part with that.
Ronan and Adam. Anybody?
Can we just...
I feel like everyone talks about them in their reviews of this book. But it was just
How can
beautiful.
You not?
It was... And it felt so right. Like, nothing about it was like, oh yeah, this is suddenly a thing. Like, it was very much about them towards the end of it. Like, before the whole, like, shit hit the fan. But it needed to be.
Yeah.
And Adam's reaction to Ronan's thing was very in character, and it was very right, and it was so cute.
Yeah. I feel like The Raven Cycle is one of those series that she never started a plot and then didn't finish it. But there is one that she forgot about. In, I forget which book, it might have been Dream Thieves, and it might have been Blue Lily Blue.
Yeah.
But we are introduced to the fact that Ronan wants to awaken the rest of the animals because his father obviously died, and the dreamer died can't...
Yeah.
Like, his creations are no longer there. Mm-hmm. And he knew that bringing his mother to Cabe's Water awoke her, so he wants to bring Cabe's Water to the animals, but we never see that again.
Although...
We see him dream up that device that tries to do that, but then it's not...
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and then it's not mentioned again.
Although it seems like the way that it ends, I think that it's kind of leaving it open to that. Like, whereas she might have forgotten about it, which is true because there's a lot of things going on in the series. Mm-hmm.
It's not one of the most important things. Exactly. It's just the only plot hole, and it really annoys me.
I think that the way that it ended and the fact that Ronan is staying at the Barns leaves it open that could have happened. Yeah. And that probably does happen after the events of the Raven King. Yeah. Because I don't think she really intended it to be that, but it's, in a way, it's wrapping up that end.
Yeah.
In a sense. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that I wanted to bring up. That was one of my few criticisms of this book. That Gansey's, like, power thing was never really explained.
Yeah.
Like, I expected that to go along with the Glendower thing, but it was just, like, he could do it.
That's it.
It's cool. It's handy. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I liked that he could command things. Like, I thought that was a very Gansey power to have.
I wanted to bring up the toga party. Because I loved it.
It was cute.
It was so cute. And it was such a good relief from the stress because this book seems really dark. And I think it was a really good way to both develop Blue and Henry's relationship, as well as Blue and Gansey's relationship. and kind of give us a break. It was like the comedic relief in a sense. In a series that has very little comedic relief, it was like the break. Mm-hmm. This is how it's going to be if it's okay. And it made me really happy.
I don't want to talk about all the cute scenes because there are so many more in-depth scenes.
That one that's just the one that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I know, but there is another one that I want to bring up.
Okay.
I loved when Gansey and Blue met in the dream. When Gansey's sleeping downstairs.
Yeah.
And they met in a dream and
it seemed very in character. I didn't fully understand it.
And Blue's like, oh, can you go check on Ronan, make sure he's still in the car? And Gansey's like, I don't really have eyes right now, but I can try. And I don't really understand what that means, but I loved it. It was so cute. And he tells her that he loves her. And I just... Mm-hmm. It was a really good scene.
It was a really good scene. Another thing about the cutesy. It was very relationship heavy at parts, especially this book and Lily Blue. Why is that so hard to say?
Right?
But it's never cutesy, and it's never the most important thing. It's really interesting how Steve Otter could, like, make relationships and love such an important thing since the beginning of the series, yet not ever focus on it.
Yeah.
Like, it never seems like that's what we're supposed to be paying the most attention to, and that's what we're supposed to be devoted to. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a thing that's happening alongside it. It never seems forced. There's never insta love that's happening, and I like it a lot.
One thing that I want to bring up now is the whole Noah passing on.
Yeah.
And him actually being the one that says to Gansey that he is Glendower.
Yeah, I'm still kind of confused about that.
A lot of people are confused, and this is the way I interpret it, is that Noah is Gansey's version of Glendower. Like, obviously he's not actually the historical Glendower. He wasn't a Welsh king or anything. But we know that Glendower was dead the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I think that Noah knew that Glendower was dead, but because he was part of a search with another person to find Glendower.
But they never found him, so
exactly.
Maybe Noah doesn't know.
Maybe he doesn't know, but either way, he wanted Gansey to know what to do when he was woken back up and, like, have something to live for. Mm-hmm. So I feel like he became Gansey's version of Glendower. Like, he went to Gansey and he was like, you will live because of Glendower. And I think that I don't know, it was really Noah that was giving Gansey his life back, not Glendower, but to Gansey, it was Glendower.
But it was Glendower because it was, and I had a light bulb here, because it was the idea of him. You will live because of Glendower. Gansey devoted his life to Glendower, another one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. Because Noah said he would, because Noah knew he would. Gansey did live because of Glendower.
Yes.
He would have kind of just deteriorated. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of blowing my mind right now.
And also, I have one more thing to say about that. So, Maggie Stiefvater, at the beginning of some chapters, said, depending on where you begin the story,
it's about blank.
And if you read very carefully, the last time that she does that is, depending on where you begin the story, it's about Noah Cerny, however you pronounce his last name, and that makes sense because really, all in all, it was about him because he is the one that planted the seed in Gansey's head that it was about Glendower, which ultimately made these books happen. Myth busted.
Myth busted.
Okay.
I love it. Another thing about the Foxway situation, kind of going off of Gwynlyan, I loved that we got to know the women at Foxway outside of their relationship with the teenagers. Mm-hmm. Like, we got that scene with them alone, and we got that scene where Mora kind of explains how she met Calla and Persephone, I loved
I had a note of that too. It's a really good scene.
It's a really good scene, and they're really rich characters, that there's a lot going on with them, so it makes sense that we would see them.
One thing that I didn't like was that Persephone kind of wasn't mentioned that much. Like, you'd think that they would mention her a little bit more, because she was kind of a huge part of their lives, and then she died. Adam mentioned her a couple times.
More often than Blue did, actually.
Mm-hmm. and more often than the other woman of Foxway did.
The
and
thing with that is, I think, like, after the events of the Raven King like, happen in their life, or wherever you want to talk about it, they're gonna break down over it. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't really have time to grieve, and it makes sense that they'd kind of be, like, pushing forward with it, but we're never really given the sense that that's what they were doing. It just kind of seemed like it wasn't brought up. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I liked her character a lot and I missed it. Me too. I liked her a lot in the series. One thing that I wanted to mention, kind of going in line with that, is that the characters acted like a lot of the events of, like, the Dream Thieves and the Raven Boys, like the first book, never happened.
Yeah. I find that a lot of series do that, like a lot of sagas and stuff, they just kind of don't mention things that happen.
Like the whole Kavinsky thing. That was a really, really important part of the Dream Thieves. That was the entire Dream Thieves, along with the whole Dream Greywearing thing. But it was brought up once, and it was by Henry.
One of the main things that happened, that we found out, that was a kind of a major truth bomb, was that Ronan dreamt Cabeswater.
Yes.
But if Ronan dreamt Cabeswater, and Cabeswater made Gansey's new body, does that mean that Ronan technically made Gansey?
No. I don't think so. Because Ronan didn't dream Cabeswater. Ronan dreamt the forest. And Cabeswater isn't the forest. Cabeswater just happened to be the forest. What I'm wondering, if there's like a little mini Cabeswater in the back of Gansey that when he dies for real is gonna, like, pop up again, and that's how it's gonna, like, be the next, like, come to life again. Kind of like the little mini Groot. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that he made Gansey.
I don't know.
I think that dream died when Cabeswater moved on through Gansey. I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna, like, happen again.
He's making a new Cabeswater, though. He hints to that at the end of the book. Yeah.
It's like, I think what he meant is that he's making, like, a new space for it. Mm-hmm. Because Cabeswater, just how it is, doesn't really have anywhere to go. So I think that what Ronan meant, like, it wasn't always a forest. Yeah. So I'm thinking that he's making a new, what they know of Cabeswater, to put Cabeswater back into. Yeah. Okay. There seemed to be points throughout the whole cycle, the whole Raven cycle, that felt like Steve Otter had a lot in the air and didn't really know what to do with it. I feel like it did all wrap up in the end.
I feel like she bit off more than she could chew at some points.
It felt like at some points that was the case, and that you didn't really know how she was going to do it, and felt like she didn't know how she was going to do it. And then at the end it did all wrap up, and almost where am I going with this? It felt like almost every, like, plot line had, like, a neat little bow, kind of like a loosened bow, because it's kind of an open ending, but you know what I mean. Yeah. But it felt like at certain points, I can never really pinpoint where, but there was, like, one point, I think it was the grocery scene. Like, the grocery store scene, because there was 3 different things going on in that same scene, and it's like she was using it all at once to wrap up those 3 things. Not wrap up, but, like, put branches off of those 3 things. And it didn't make a lot of sense at first.
Quite a few of the scenes, not just in this book, but in the whole series, were, like, she was trying to do too much at once, I feel like, and it kind of created a little bit of confusion.
I think it worked in the end when you think of it as a collective, but at the time it was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like, I didn't know what to concentrate on. Mm-hmm. Like, I like scenes that's like...
what I mean.
Yeah, I like scenes more like... I'm trying to think of an example.
The Grey Man scenes, where it's very clear what he's focusing on. Yeah. And that he knows about the other issue and will deal with it and will help, but that's not what his main purpose is. Mm-hmm. If that's what you mean.
I think so.
I just... Yeah.
I'm not completely certain. I think so.
I don't think she went about it in a bad way. I just think that there was a lot. Yeah. There was a lot happening.
Yeah. Which, it happens, especially in a series this complex.
It's so complicated. I had a lot of theories reading through this book. I don't know if I'm the only one, but the way that I read it was like, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? How is it going to work?
I just read her first one, and I'm like...
And I wanted to bring up a few. And I can't really explain why I thought these things. Why am I waving around a pen? I don't really know why I thought these things. But I think in my head they made sense, and I can still see how that's happening. You're going to question a lot of them, but that's alright. My first one is that I thought Gansey was maybe actually going to end up being Glendower. In, like, the beginning of The Raven King and, like, halfway through Blue Lily Lily Blue. I don't think it was going to be, like, literally, like, the historical one, but, like, almost like the you will live because of Glendower, meaning that he had somehow, like, already used the wish, or that he was... What I'm saying doesn't make sense. I'm gonna cut that out because what I'm saying doesn't make sense. That's not what I think. I'm trying to justify myself. That's what I thought. And I don't know how to word why I thought that, but it made sense in my head, I promise. My second theory / expectations is I thought that Noah was going to be a lot more connected to Cavewater. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted him to be. Yeah. Because if he died on the ley line, it makes sense that he would be kind of woven with it. Mm-hmm. And that was never really addressed. Yeah. So I don't know if that was on purpose. Yeah. Probably. I don't know. Third one is that I thought that Adam was definitely going to die. Just because the way his character was portrayed, it was very, like, small at first, and kind of, like, the way he kind of came into himself seemed very rounded, and, like, it was going to come full circle and have him die off. So, final thoughts. Basically the same as my opening thoughts. I loved it. I loved it always. I loved it all. I want to read it again right now. It's just... I love it. That's how I feel about it as well. Just clutch it.
So good. It was a perfect ending to...
It was.
A really amazing...
Nothing seems like it didn't make sense. Everything kind of wrapped up, and it wasn't like... It didn't leave you... It wasn't ever finished, and it left you wanting more, but it was like... in a way that was intentional. It mm-hmm. wasn't like she didn't know what to do with something, so she left you like, what do I want from this? Yeah. I think that Maggie Stiefvater is a little bit evil. Yeah. And a little bit of a genius.
Yeah. She's an evil genius.
One could say.
So. There were our thoughts on The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater.
Yeah. I'm like emotionally drained.
Yeah. We both read this about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, more or less.
And 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we haven't let ourselves talk to each other about it. So this
was pent up.
This was for you, but it was also for us, because we've been holding this in for almost a month. Like, we needed to let it out.
It was bad. So, we should probably end this so it's not actually an hour long. Yeah. We would like it if you would share your comments and what you have to say about this book, because I feel like there's a lot to discuss with a story like this, and getting more than 2 perspectives and thoughts would be really great, so leave that in the comments, please.
We also, I know, brought up a lot of things, but if there's things that we missed and things that we just maybe wouldn't have noticed, then please let us know, because I love finding out new theories,
theories are my favorite.
New theories, new, like, opinions, all of that. Like, just vent to us if you need to, like, just let it all out.
So, like it if you liked it, and comment with everything you want to say about this book. Leave us, like, essays, because I want to know everything everyone has to say about this book. Everyone should read this book, and everyone should talk about this book. And subscribe if you'd like to see more.
Alright, bye!